During Carl Jung's near-death experience, he explained an experience and vision that not only explained an out-of-body astral experience of consciousness, outside from one's own human body, but an experience that in many ways follows the dynamics of what is proposed through holographic string theory, but more importantly, that psyche is singularity. When Jung had a near-death experience during a heart attack, he stated that he rose out from his body above planet Earth to what he approximated as 1,000 miles high within the atmosphere. He stated that he saw a black rock of house size. Inside this rock was a black Hindu sitting in lotus posture wearing a white robe, who already expected his presence. When Jung approached this temple, it in the moment felt as if what he called phantasmagoria of all Earth's existence fell away from him and his consciousness in a painful fashion. But soon as it all went from his consciousness, it all came back again when he gained all of his where in that instance he gained all of his earthly biography before his own eyes. He, after that, is then drawn to an illuminated room in the back of the temple of the Black Rock, but the voice of his physician pulled him back into traditional reality once again. Jung claimed after this near-death experience that reality itself, as we know it, is very much like a prison, that reality is no different from what you could call a box system, as if behind the horizon of the cosmos, a three-dimensional world has been artificially built up, in which each person sat by himself in a little box, a three-dimensional box, that we would be hung up in a box once again by a thread. And that's what he said when he came back to traditional reality. He later on describes this experience as an ecstasy of non-temporal state in which the present, past and future are all one in totality, but interwoven into an indescribable whole, and yet observes it with complete objectivity, which is an encounterment with the cosmic horizon, which is all relatable to singularity, which I will get to in a moment. So this entire experience, which he describes, is very much like a synthesis of string theory and the cosmology presented by Plato's Republic, presented by the likes of the cave allegory, but also similar to something of singularity, that all past, present and future become one. Susskind's string theory of holographic information conservation, the event horizon of black holes and the cosmic horizon of the universe correlates to Jung's explanation of his near-death experience and the vision he has. That his consciousness flowed into this state of awareness out from his own body. But why did Jung experience this? Why did he have this vision? Why did people anyway have such visions during near-death experiences? And more importantly, what is the psyche? What is this thing which is the source of consciousness? What is it? It needs a description in relation to the properties it holds. What is it? Psyche isn't just psyche. So this is what the video is going to be all about, applying Jung's equation of the psyche that he developed through his contact with Einstein to physics. And it gets very peculiar and very interesting when we start doing this. So Jung's correspondence with Einstein allowed him to formulate an equation relating to what psychic energy is, with overlooking the properties of energy and mass. Einstein developed the equation of energy being E equals mc squared, with the theory of relativity, but psychic energy should be measurable, which means it should have some sort of mass, right? But what Jung stated was that maybe psychic energy is actually mass accelerating past the speed of light with relation to Einstein's theory of relativity, which makes him state the following equation, that psyche equals or is equal to highest intensity in the smallest space. This is like saying that energy, well, this is what I think is like saying that energy of the psyche is infinite and that infinite energy in of itself is housed in the smallest space, which can be nothing other than zero, which is of course highest intensity in the smallest space. In relation to relativity theory, the equation of energy and matter can equate to the idea of can equate to what you could call gravitational singularity, and these are the corresponding relations between psyche and matter: gravitational singularity and psyche. So, seeing that both Jung and Pauli agreed on the idea of dual aspect monism, that psyche and cosmos or mind and matter came from the unus mundus, or unfragmented whole, which got defragmented into its dualistic parts, it raises the question, what is the physical equivalent of this equation in the physical world, or world of the cosmos? Which one can say is that of the gravitational singularity, found within the black hole. Now, why is this? It's very peculiar, because its own nature follows the same equation. Gravitational singularity of a black hole has one, infinite density, which is consistent with highest intensity, due to the gravitational pull that occurs beyond the event horizon, which is the point of no return of the black hole, and two, the smallest space, which is the singularity itself, which is at the centre of the black hole. Now, the nature of the psyche itself is very peculiar when we think of the relationship it has between mind and matter. That the human mind itself often has been excluded from the physical sciences due to the inundated attention we have always had with regards to knowledge associated to external objects. That the subject of all knowledge and how it is conceived through the psyche has been looked over as if it is of a non-existence itself. That the psyche is of non-existence with relation to all these external observations of knowledge. And this is obviously due to the post-Cartesian or Cartesian split within Western man through the works of Descartes, and how Eastern man does not suffer from this kind of schizophrenic splitting or pulling between mind and matter. And this is what caused Schrödinger to say, I quote, "Mind has erected the objective outside world of the natural philosopher out of its own stuff," end quote. Which means that man, erecting the outside world by the use of mind, has at the same time excluded mind from the picture, which by doing so excludes or does not contain its own creator. The psyche is the creator, but is excluded from the drawing or picture of matter or conceptual creation, which is understood from it itself. Which means fundamentally that conceptual creations themselves don't contain its creator. For example, think of it like this: the psyche does not observe itself from the objective world it projects, the same way in how the eye does not observe itself from the objective world it projects, even though they are both the source of consciousness and perception. So this implies that we should be able to find the psyche, the source of all consciousness, which is at the same time excluded if we trace space-time, back to its source. The limit of comparability or between the psychic and material gives us a form of origin between these two existences. Jung says that they are like two cones whose apices, or points if you will, touch but do not touch. What would form that which would form a real 0 point. Thus, gravitational singularity is what you could call a perfectly suited cosmological term to suit Jung's picturing idea of a real 0 point without extension, where the psychic and material worlds touch and do not touch at the same time. But like this, that kind of conceptualization. It can be said then that the psyche is the world's pivot. It's the one great condition for the world to exist, but it is also an intervention into the existing natural order of things. The psyche itself is an intervention into the existing natural order of things, like the phenomena we perceive upon Kant's noumena. And this intervention of the psyche upon the natural order is limited only by its potential, which is uncertain, because we don't know the limits of potential or the limits of the psyche's potential. We don't know this. Thus, what is the psyche complementary to in the cosmos as being pivotal? Well, what other singularities do we have in the cosmos? We have the black hole singularity with relation to the event horizon, which is the place of no return, but we also have the inside-out version of a black hole, which is the Big Bang universe, which I think is a more profound example because it is where space-time is expanding away from the singularity instead of coming into it. And it is this form of inside-out singularity of dispersion which itself was the pivotal point for all existence in the cosmos, if we are to accept that theory, which is the same way in which the psyche is the world's pivot for our reality of the world. The Big Bang singularity, pivotal for the unfoldment of the universe, but also because both are singularities, as Jung says, the psyche is an intervention of the existing natural order. And that, I think, is no different from saying that the psyche exists outside of space-time. Especially if it is the source of consciousness, then the world is controlled by the pivot of the psyche itself, which is by its own power equal to, what you could say, I guess, unmanifested or manifested potential, I think. So this explains why we can break through the three-dimensional prison into many different forms of consciousness, like Jung's near-death experience, the visions he had, or using hallucinogenics and its effects on consciousness. Different forms of meditation, transcendental meditation, Kundalini enlightenment, and all of this. All of these examples, the same way the Big Bang singularity is outside space-time. And this all comes together when we also take into account Jung's equation for the psyche, which is itself identical to the definition of a singularity itself, as I said before. And this all fits in nicely when we know that Jung and Pauli, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, equated the psyche and physics being or having parallelism with each other, both coming from or out from the unus mundus or unfragmented whole. That if we can formulate a definition of the psyche in objective terms, like the equation of psyche equals singularity, then we should be able to find an equation identical to that in the cosmos, which are the singularities in space itself, like the Big Bang singularity or black hole singularities. God, right. It's very complicated. And this, of course, leads us into relating the psyche to what Jung saw as the archetype of the totality of the psyche, which was the archetype of the self presented by the imagery of the mandala, or the mandala, which is the unison of opposites in one single form called the mandala, or self-archetype. And what makes this so fascinating again is that the mandala, or mandala, is the all, it's the totality, the God image. It is symbolic of housing all other archetypes because it is the unison of all opposites itself. So it is everything, an image which arises out of the psyche. That's what the mandala is. So if the self-archetype arises out from the mind as a mandala, or mandala within the psyche, and that physics mirrors the laws of psychology, and mind and matter both come from the unus mundus, the unfragmented whole, or again the archetype of the self, then what is the material, cosmic manifestation of this? Black holes. Black holes have a center point, or central point, of infinite density, which is outside of space and time, surrounded by a perfect sphere. It's not a physical object, just like how the mandala is not a physical object because it's created within the mind, but it's where space and time stop, but have gravitational effect beyond the event horizon. Therefore, the self-archetype is the singularity, and the singularity is the self-archetype. The physicist's explanation and the psychological explanation, but from different perspectives. But they also have the same behaviour, the singularity and the psyche. You can say that the Big Bang singularity, which exists outside of space-time, that allows for the entire dispersion and unfoldment of the universe in complete totality, is the same as the mandala, which is a singularity that is the union of all opposites, the dispersion and unfoldment of all and everything in the universe. It's the same thing, especially when the psyche is the self-archetype or the mandala or the singularity itself. And I think that totalifies, to some degree, one explanation of why psyche equals or is equal to singularity, with also using Jung and Pauli's own theory that physics mirrors the laws of psychology. Therefore, what we come to understand is that the psyche is equal to singularity, that it takes on an infinite value in relation to its intervention upon the natural world, just like how the singularity of the Big Bang has an infinite value outside of space-time for the unfoldment of the universe, or the gravitational singularity of a black hole. As singularities are interventions in the existing order, they are also beyond space-time, which places them outside the laws of physics, giving them an unknown potential and coherence to the peculiarities that we find with the psyche, like Jung's near-death experience with his visions of the cosmic horizon, the archetypes of the collective unconsciousness, within the psyche, being outside space-time, or synchronicities occurring outside space-time, because the psyche equals singularity, which is intervention upon the existing nature of reality itself. So I hope that makes some sense and was interesting or profound to some degree. You probably need to watch this video a few times because it's very complicated. So if you want to learn more about this, check out where I found all of this from, which was from Todd Desmond's book Psyche and Singularity, which is all about Jungian psychology and holographic string theory, and where I found the idea for this video. It's very complicated, very difficult to grasp, I think, but if you are up for it, make sure to check out that book. You can find it on Amazon. I'll put a link to it in the description. So with that said, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Follow my newsletter for weekly articles at thoughtsonthinking.org. A link will be in the description. So with that said, thanks for watching, and I wish you a lovely day.